Residential Market Analysis and Highest and Best Use. Chapter 4, Highest and Best Use, page 14, Special Situations. Interim Highest and Best Use. We have introduced the term interim in connection with the highest and best use. It is possible that the appraiser will have determined what the highest and best use of the land is going to be in the near future. However, it may be that development to the highest and best use in today's market is premature. An example of the interim use of the land follows. In checking with the city engineer, the appraiser is told that the utilities will be in place at the subject location within 2 years, and that when the utilities are in place, the vacant land will be rezoned to allow both residential and commercial use. The appraisal assignment's effective date is today. Utilities are not in place as of the effective date of the appraisal. There is no support for the highest and best use of the land to be used as a residential or commercial development, as nothing will happen until the utilities are in place. For the individual landowner, the cost to provide utilities for the subject's development to its highest and best use as a residential or commercial entity is too great, and there is too much risk involved. While the highest and best use of the subject property may be for residential or commercial development in the future market, in today's market it is not legally permissible, as the land is zoned for agricultural use, nor is it financially feasible, as installation of the utilities is cost prohibitive. Ultimately, the highest and best use of the subject land area will be either a residential or commercial use. The zoning changes will reflect and encourage that type of development. But today, the temporary use of the land area is the continued use as an agricultural property. Today's use can be termed to be an interim use for the land area. Interim in that the highest and best use of the land is expected to change in not too distant future. The appraiser will identify the interim use and appraise the land accordingly, using today's date as the effective date. The appraiser will also note in the appraisal report the fact that the ultimate highest and best use for the land area will be forthcoming when the community has the public utilities in place. Additionally, the report should include the statement from the city engineer that those utilities will be in place at the subject land area within 2 years. At that time, the land area's highest and best use should change, assuming, of course, that the developed land is still in demand. The value of the land area should also change to reflect its ultimate highest and best use having been achieved. The appraiser will be able to fully support the analysis process for the ultimate highest and best use of the land area. In the example stated above, the appraiser was able to analyze the market and determine there was a market demand for developed land in the community. That same analysis indicated that it was not feasible, which means supportable, to appraise the vacant land area with a highest and best use other than agricultural use at the present time. In this example, Today's highest and best use determination was to not develop the land area, but rather to value it in its present use. The development of a vacant land area is not always the highest and best use of the land. Only by analyzing the market and applying the 4 factors of analysis as identified above will the appraiser be able to determine those forces that will affect the highest net return for the land over time. End of page. Page 15. Legally non-conforming uses. A legally non-conforming use is defined in the Appraisal of Real Estate, 13th edition, as a use that was lawfully established and maintained, but no longer conforms to the use regulations of the current zoning in the zone where it is located. Legal non-conforming uses generally result because the municipality has rezoned an area in order to transition the area into a different use. The transition process is typically allowed to occur naturally, as opposed to the requiring that all existing properties which do not conform to the new ordinance being raised to make way for an alternative type of development. Legal non-conforming uses can take the form of under or over improvements. A single-family residential dwelling situated in an area that has been rezoned for commercial use typically represents an under improvement. If the surrounding area has clearly demonstrated a trend of raising or renovating existing residential properties to make way for a commercial use, the highest and best use study as improved would include an analysis of the benefit of raising versus the benefit of renovating. As an example, the subject property is a 3,200 square foot 2-story single-family dwelling which was constructed in the early 1900s. At that time, the zoning permitted residential dwellings and the subject was constructed in compliance with the then zoning and building codes. Over the years, the traffic pattern has shifted and the street on which the subject is located has become a major east/west arterial. Approximately 15 years ago, in light of this shift in traffic patterns, the city revised their master plan and determined that residential use along the subject street was an underutilization and that the area would be better served under light commercial uses, such as professional offices and light retail. In driving the subject street, the appraiser identified that approximately 50% of the dwellings are now in use as professional offices, predominantly attorneys, CPAs, and insurance agents. It was also noted that in each case, the existing residential structure was retained and renovated for office use. After researching sales of properties in the subject's market area, the appraiser concluded the following. Single-family residential sale prices range from $85 to $100 per square foot of gross living area. Sales of single-family residential converted for office use range from $85 to $95 per square foot of gross building area. In this case, GBA and GLA were identical. Cost to convert an existing single-family residential property for office use would approximate $10 per square foot of gross building area. In this example, there is currently no economic benefit to the conversion of the subject from residential use to commercial office use. The appraiser's conclusion would be that the highest and best use of the subject property is to continue its use as a single-family residential structure until such time as the market is able to absorb the renovation costs as well as any market-driven entrepreneurial profit. On the other hand, what if the appraiser has determined that selling prices for single-family residential properties, which were converted for use as offices, currently range between $125 and $145 per square foot? In this case, the market is clearly demonstrating that it not only will absorb the renovation costs of $20 per square foot, but that it will also offer an entrepreneurial profit. $85 a square foot minus $100 a square foot equals value as single-family residential, plus $10 a square foot equals cost to convert, equals $95 a square foot minus $110 a square foot equals total investment. $125 a square foot minus $145 a square foot equals value as commercial / office building minus $95 a square foot minus $120 a square foot equals total investment equals $30 a square foot minus $35 a square foot equals positive return on investment profit. The highest and best use conclusion based upon this data would be to convert the existing structure for use as a professional office. The appraiser would advise the client immediately of this conclusion, since the valuation process to follow would be a commercial property, not a residential property. In the above examples, the analysis were relatively straightforward and the results were clear. In many cases, the analysis becomes very complex, with multiple alternative uses to analyze. It may also be necessary to reconstruct and analyze operating expense statements for the various uses in order to determine both financial feasibility and maximum productivity. Into page 66%.